Hey everybody, I saw an interesting question today in a very interesting forum. So I've joined a few support groups for borderline personality disorder. It's a disorder closely related to narcissism. They diverge on a few points. I'm learning more about it. It's very enlightening. That's an understatement. It's extremely enlightening. If you're not part of a borderline support group, you should definitely join one. The question was, am I overreacting? And the overreacting was, it was a woman saying that her fiance is frequently complimenting other women, telling other women that they look good or that they're beautiful, etc. And that she has told him that it bothers her. And he has said, well, one, saying that you're overreacting. Number two, saying that there's nothing behind it, that he just feels the need to, be nice, tell them they look good, to be nice, because that's generally what nice people do. You tell somebody, you compliment them, right? And she says that it makes her extremely jealous, extremely upset, but she also feels that she is overreacting because she is borderline, and that's what borderlines do, and she's seeking therapy to sort of curb it down. And so her question was, am I overreacting, or am I even justified in reacting? Is he an asshole? What? Because she's sort of she's kind of sort of bass backwards on some of it, and she doesn't really know which end is up. And so it really got me thinking, because there's a number of different explanations, a number of different positions and ways you can feel on this. So the first thing is, anytime somebody is giving a diatribe on something that's upsetting them, the first thing you need to do, if you're going to try and help this person, is to recognize that you're only getting half of the story. So anytime you go into any support group, and you try to help somebody, you have at best 30% of the full picture. I say 30%, not 50%, because anytime somebody has a problem and they go to a support group, they are half of the problem situation, so full 50%. But then they have, within that 50%, anybody has the part where they feel justified and they don't need any help on it whatsoever. So they have sort of their base assumption, their base system of approach. So very rarely is anybody 50% of a situation and need help with a full 50% of it, right? Do those percentages make sense? I guess rarely do they need advice on a full 100% of their 50%, right? So I guess that's a better way of putting it. So at the most, 30% is about as much information as you have. And even then, it's usually far less than that. So understand that you're typically operating on about 10% of the full reality of the situation. That's a problem, because what happens then is everybody begins to project their own life experiences into this 10 to 30% scenario, and it is a disaster usually. So in approaching this problem, my first thought is, well, let me sort of think about this from the man perspective, because I get her perspective. Trust me, I get it. He's complimenting other women. She don't like it. A lot of girls don't like it, right? So I'm thinking from the man's perspective. Well, number one, it's all subjective to her interpretation of what he's saying. And number two, the reactions of these other women are actually really, really important to consider. And there's no information at all about that. So is he complimenting other women, and are they eating it up? Or are they getting creeped out? Or are they having any reaction at all, right? Because it really just depends on the nature of what it is he's saying too, right? You can't just... you can define anything as complimenting somebody, right? And that's a pretty generic description, right? So it has to be more specific. You have to think about how these other women are reacting, and what it is that he's actually saying and doing. So there's that. So in tackling this problem, I asked a few key questions, and that is it was exactly that. Number one, is he how are these compliments being received by other women? And the number one thing that I asked her was that, how do you know he's actually complimenting other women? Is he doing it in front of you? Or is he telling you about it after the fact? Because that's a big difference. That is a very big difference. Because the thing is, if he's doing it in front of her and she sees the reactions of these women, chances are good she's going to have her reaction right then and there, and it's going to be sufficient. She won't need a support group to help her figure some shit out, because it'll be in front of her face. She'll know what to do. So I'm thinking perhaps maybe she only knows what he tells her. Well, why in the hell would he even go around telling her? Well, it is a manipulation tactic known as triangulation. That's passed around in plenty of pickup arts circles, and not even pickup arts. More and more, it's showing up in just male support groups, dating groups for men, general life advice for men. And you ladies know it's true to an extent. Nothing gets your interest more than to hear about another woman from the mouth of a man that you fancy, right? It immediately latches your curiosity onto the situation, good or bad or otherwise, right? So it's used in some ways as an attraction builder. It's used in other ways as a manipulation tactic, and in other ways for cheating, if that's what he's into and doing. There could be any number of situations. So in addition to all of these other questions that I had, those are the number of different things that could be explaining it. There's also, and I put this down, it may also be that he's seeking validation. Women do this. All of you ladies watching this video right now, don't hate me on this. You ladies know exactly what I'm talking about. You're having a bad day, you're feeling sort of insecure, you wonder how you look. You take a selfie, you put it out there on Facebook, and you look and you see what kind of response you get. Don't say you've never done it. You've done it. Right? Men don't do that. But men can and will often still sort of validate themselves and try to get some sort of feedback just to see off of women. And that's go up and talk to a pretty girl and see how she responds, right? Am I on my A game today, or do I look like a giant piece of shit? I don't know. Let me go up to a girl who's typically approached and see what kind of response I get. It may also be, depending on the kind of guy he is. Me personally, I know that I gravitate more towards enlisting female friends than guy friends. I've always just done better with girls than I have with guys, particularly at the later age in life, because it's really just kind of sort of, I don't really know how to explain it. I can't really just call a dude just to talk, right? It's weird. So guy friends are good for engaging with hobbies and activities and all of that, but for deep personal friendships, I tend to gravitate towards women. And I do compliment women. Not all the time and with no intent, but it's something that I do. It may very well be that the same way. Who knows, right? But It could be that he's seeking validation. It could just be that he's a friendly guy. So all of those possibilities are also there. There's still yet even another possibility that perhaps he's just a born and bred simp, where he lowers himself to the level of a servant, It could be what was the word I used? It could be that he's a serial orbiter, right? Ladies, you know who the orbiters are. They're the guys, basically the friend zone guys who are trying to climb, trying to put their ladder over the wall and climb over the wall, right? And they're the guys who are not in your immediate circle of interest, but they're out there, right? So your plan C's kind of people, right? None of which is attractive, right? Orbiters tend to not be attractive, but they're there. They're useful for things like validating, etc. But maybe he's just a serial orbiter, and she's just felt that either she's dating him for some reason. Maybe she's just doubting his value as a man. And then I put, being a serial orbiter, seeking validation and being an orbiter is not attractive, and it's really not. But see, validation can be neutral if it's mutual validation, right? So it's like, hey, you're looking pretty good. Yeah, not too bad yourself, right? So that's kind of sort of neutral. It's lower down. It's not as unattractive, right? But it's still kind of sort of there. And then the last thing I said is if you were a well-developed men, and I like to use that term well-developed man because I don't like using alpha and beta. I think it speaks far more accurately, and I think it's a far more understandable term to say a well-developed male. Because you can have a well-developed alpha and an insecure alpha, well-developed beta. They can be mature or immature, right? But just somebody who's well-rounded, well-developed men don't validate women. They don't. You ladies know this, right? Whenever you meet a guy who's a manly man or just, just a well-developed guy, he doesn't go around making himself a servant, begging for access, right? He doesn't do that. Hell, they barely even validate the girls that they are with, right? They don't just go handing out compliments because they understand that it's unattractive, right? The other thing is, well-developed men are discreet. And ladies, you know that. You know this, right? The good guys, the best men are the discreet men because they know and understand the importance of discretion when it comes to dating and relationships, hookups, that kind of thing. And so my response to her then was, if I would wonder if he's a well-developed man or not. Just how well-developed is he? Because here's the thing. If he were well-developed, you wouldn't be hearing about any of this stuff. So there's plenty of evidence to suggest that he's not well-developed, which means he's insecure, a serial orbiter, a simp, a manipulator, a quote-unquote pickup artist, or just general lack of experience when it comes to being around women. Or maybe it's just the fact that he could just be a guy who gets along great with girls. There's so many different possibilities it could be. So my advice to her ultimately is don't give 10% of the information to the internet full of strangers and expect to get any kind of accurate answers. You can't get any kind of accurate answers. Look to yourself, and this is what I left her with. If you're not happy with something, you communicate this to your partner. They should respect it. If they do not respect it and try to negotiate, try to compromise, it's a red flag that you really don't need to be with that person. And you don't have to have a degree in psychology or a clinical diagnosis to understand that you're in a toxic relationship. You don't need the diagnosis. You don't need a clinical diagnosis to know that. And you don't need a clinical diagnosis to justify breaking up with somebody. Even though you're a fiance, right? You made it pretty far. But the thing is, just because you made it far and long with somebody doesn't mean that you should go the whole distance of your life with them. So you've made it 8 or 9 months. Could you make it 40 years with somebody like that? Fuck no. Because 9 months in, you're having serious concerns. So, save the other 39 years and 3 months of your life. You know, that's what you got to do. Consider the additional 39 years of life, or however old you are, I don't know, and decide if it's worth it. Work on yourself. And then one other thing that I had forgotten to mention, I said, how are you with other men? Do you ever say anything about you talking to other men? Do you ever compliment other guys or flirt with them or talk to them? Do you have any guy friends that you have that you have out in the open, not open, not like sexual open, but do you have any guy friends who are, quote, like a brother that he knows about? If you do, knock it the hell off, right? Because men aren't stupid, right? If you have a guy friend who's like a brother and his presence in your life causes problems with your partner, and you tell your partner to suck it up, buttercup, here's the clue. You're not with the top man in your life. Your friend is higher up on the food chain than your significant other. That's a problem. That's a problem that you should not put yourself in, a problem situation that you shouldn't put yourself in, and most definitely should not put your significant other in either. So, when that's the case, if you have a guy friend who's like a brother, whether or not you have any kind of history, or whether or not you have any sort of sexual relationship with this person, is absolutely irrelevant. If he is your friend and like a brother, he should understand that you're now with a new significant other, and he ought to take leave to back the hell off too. Right? I know I do. I'm friends with girls, but I don't speak to them regularly, because I understand they're with other guys. And even at the base of it, you should understand that the more I talk to a girl who's with a guy, the more it's gonna confuse her emotionally, right? Or the more that there's a chance for it. So that's something I know going into friendships with girls. I start becoming too close of a friend, it's gonna be nothing but trouble for that girl with the other guy. I know this, and she ought to know it. So think about that. Do you have any other guy friends? Do you also flirt with guys? Because if you do, then you can't say, well, it's different when I do it, but not when he does it. You can't do that. You cannot have a double standard. So that's what I got. Thank you guys very much for watching. Please like, comment, or share. I haven't washed my window yet. Let me get to it. So, alright, I'll see y'all on the next video.